Hello, my name is Luciana. I'm a white woman with a long black hair. I'm wearing a white shirt, and I'm a global manager at ZTech. ZTech is an innovation group, part of Anheusen-Busch InBev, which mission is to empower small and medium-sized business to change the world through technology. And today, I have the pleasure of chatting with one of the best known experts in the sales world, Aaron Ross. He's the author of the best-selling books on sales development titled Predictive Revenue and the co-founder of the sales consulting agency that goes by the same name. So Aaron, you're the founder of the Predictive Revenue. So for those who don't know your company or the concept that you coined, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. In fact, I was, and by the way, white man wearing a blue shirt, short brown hair, and I'm in the UK right now. So it's pretty amazing, to say how to speak with so many people this far away around the world. But I was a specialist in outbound prospecting, outbound selling for a lot of years. And I really started at salesforce.com. I created the whole outbound prospecting function and team at salesforce.com, which helped them add more than 100 million in revenue. And then wrote a couple books, the Receita Previsível, Predictable Revenue one, and the latest one called From Impossible to Inevitable, in Portuguese called Hipercrescimento. And really it's all about how can you use proven practices to grow your business, especially sales, B2B sales. So fun fact, I've got 10 kids too. So I just got them, it's always active in the house, which is another word for chaotic, but amazing. So very much into balancing business, making money, but also having a family, having life, and spending time with them. So I think today I've got some highlights from especially the From Impossible to Inevitable book, right? Just there's been a lot of chaos in the world. There's going to be a lot of chaos. I think it's not going to change. If anything, it's probably going to, there'll be more over time. And I know there's a lot of people who are looking for some direction with where to take their work, their growth, and their lives. So Lucy, we good?
Yeah.
Anything? Okay. All right, let's do this. First, I think there's a few hidden beliefs, whether you're a single entrepreneur or whether, I'll just put these out here, or whether you work at a business as an employee, or maybe you may be in a small business, a large business. But some of the common ones are, this is especially in the tech world, but it happens in services too, which is, if I just create a great product, that's all I really need to do. And kind of everything else will take care of itself. Not really true. Or, I've got problems. More work is better. More hustle is the answer. Sometimes, not so much. Personally, for more than 10 years, I've only worked maybe 10 to 25 hours a week. Because when I work a lot, and sometimes I do, there's certain work weeks I might put in a lot more, but on average, I find when I'm putting in more than that, for me, I'm losing sight of ideas. So, but everybody's different. Another one, I have to choose between, do I be successful with my career, or am I gonna be successful with my family or have a life, right? Again, you don't have to choose between one or the other. And the last one is, God, I don't want to have to sell our market. Why can't people just buy this? Or why should I have to even learn how to sell our market? Right. So these are all things that get in our way of being successful, especially with our careers, but also with our life. And I know a lot of you are going to have families like myself. So there's again, a small number of topics I'll go through today. Again, a lot of these are really timeless principles. They've been true for years. They're going to be true for coming years. The tactics might change, but the ideas are going to be the same. They're going to work. You just might apply them in different ways. The first is predictable pipeline, right? Okay, yeah, you want to create a product and have people just come in and buy it. Sometimes that works, and there's a bit of the fantasy that works enough. There's always going to be companies like Dropbox make it, but really ways and techniques to generate leads and pipeline in a predictable ways is your main lever for growth for most businesses, unless you're very large. But even then, and I have companies like Cisco and Google as clients, they still want ways to create predictable pipeline. So But the key thing is there's really three kinds of leads, right? So if lead generation is your key to driving growth and having more control over it, there's three types. And like at home, we've got three types of princesses. Now they're all different, but all have their advantages in some ways and disadvantages in others, just like the three types of leads. We've got the classic little girl princess, got the grandpa princess, well, maybe some more disadvantages for this one, and the big brother princess. Now, like there's those three types that are very different, here, there's three types of leads: seeds, nets, and spears. And I'll just put, so seeds really are the leads created through word of mouth, customer referrals, friends, through your network. Of course, they're the best kinds of leads, but they're hard to grow. Nets would be marketing, whether you call it inbound marketing, paid marketing. You're casting a wide net. You're getting a lot of leads, of which only a small number are a good fit. And this last one is spears, the outbound prospecting or outbound business development, where you have a specific list of companies or partners, and there's usually a human involved, and whether they're calling or emailing or using social media or knocking on doors, they're going after a smaller number of companies, and they're getting fewer appointments that are of better quality. So all these are great. They're all important, but they're all different. So for example, with seeds, really, this is about investing primarily. The best way to increase word of mouth is investing in customer success. Right. So this red area is generating leads, sales, the green one, and investing in customer success, because customer success is not an expense. And it's not even really about customer satisfaction. It's really about generating revenue and growth. Investing in customer success, and usually means a team, which means investing in making sure your customers will stay longer, are happier, will create better references, better case studies, and then buy more from you. So it's a revenue generating function. And what we've seen in Silicon Valley, and so Jason Lemkin is my co-author on the Crecimento book, From Impossible to Inevitable. He's created the largest SaaS community on the planet. He says customer success is 5 times as important as sales, right? If you don't have customer success, you don't have anything, and you need to invest bigger, faster. So a lot of Silicon Valley companies, by the time they have 10 people, often have someone dedicated to customer success. So I'm going to share a little case study. There's a company called Guild, and so they had 4% churn per month. I'll lay this out. Now, 4% churn per month is 50% per year. So every year they're losing half their customers. Let me get the portuguese here. So every year they'd lose half their customers, and they wanted to drop that to 1% a month, or about 15% a year, right? So they did that really by creating 3 tiers. So they had he was the first dedicated customer success person, an executive. So they did 3 tiers of customer success functions on their team. They created 90-day adoption plans to ensure that people who signed up with your service had a very specific way to onboard and make sure that they were able to get to be able to use the product successfully. For key customers, they do executive business reviews every quarter. And lastly, they really invested in things like software and tools to make sure they had systems, they had metrics and some predictability in the team. And now everyone's customer success approach is a bit different. The way that you invest in yours might be different than this, but the point is you need to invest in customer success. Customer support can be related, but customer support is really fixing problems that happen. Customer success is preventing problems from happening in the first place. And just a little more detail on that customer success team, right? So they had 3 layers, right? 3 types of customer success jobs. It's really for the small business customers or smaller customers, right? So there might be 1 customer success rep, an inside rep handling 70 of the smaller customers. They had what they called an outside customer success rep, and the metrics would change. They measured them on renewals, and they might have handed one rep for every 30 customers. And then the executive, right, or the enterprise customer success rep would work with the bigger customers or the really fast growing ones And they actually were measured more on like a salesperson, like on quota and upselling, cross-selling, right? Again, your version might be different. The point is they had 3 different customer segments and they had a different customer success job for each segment. Mm-hmm. By the way, Lucy, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to jump in. Okay.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, one question that I have is that what would you say there are the key components to the predictable revenue system?
Yeah, so one is this idea of creating predictable pipeline. And so we said there was really three key ways, whether you invest in customer success, and you want to do all 3 at some point, do marketing, and which is, I only have this one slide because everyone pretty much knows marketing. It's not really my specialty. And the third one is to be outbound prospecting. So predictable pipeline is one. And we're also going to talk about something called nailing a niche and specializing salespeople. Those are kind of like the 3 fundamental building blocks that if you don't have those 3, you will not be able to create predictable growth. So why don't we do, so I mentioned with nets, right? This is marketing. Now a marketing funnel looks like this. This is a very classic marketing funnel. It's different than the seeds funnel, the customer success funnel. So again, seeds, nets, and spears. You'll hear this a lot because it's very important. I've had a lot of people say that idea was one of the most transformative ones for them, and probably more on senior executive, because again, if you're creating projections, forecasting, trying to drive growth, trying to measure results, the idea is again, one word of mouth lead, so one seed might be worth 100 or 300 marketing leads or nets, or again, because they're all different. And one example is the funnels are different, the metrics are different. Marketing metrics and steps are going to be different than customer success. And again, marketing, that's kind of the main thing I'd have. I guess if there's one, if you're more an executive in marketing, if there's one key piece of advice, I'd say it's have your marketing leader on a quota of some kind. And not for number of leads, but really for either pipeline created or number of sales qualified leads that they're creating when you can do it. All right, the third type, spears, outbound prospecting. You know, honestly, in the past, what I've been most known for, interesting enough, I recently been doing, you know, had my predictable revenue company for like 10 years, and I'm in the process of leaving that, and my partner buy me out to do some new things, which I'll get to that at the end, because again, the world's changed. I'm really excited about a lot of things happening, but prospecting, spears is still something that works, something I believe in. But I know some people just get so, I'll use the word obsessed about what should my email say? What should I do on the phone? And those tactics are really important. How do I use LinkedIn? Those are really important. But the team that functions is not going to work, especially again, if you're a manager, executive, it's not going to work unless you know and you have the metrics and the dashboards. That is the heart. It's really the heart of any of these functions. But I think especially with prospecting, because again, people are so obsessed with what to say in the emails. Okay, but dashboards. Now, this is our old family car in Los Angeles. We recently moved, well, not 2 years ago, to the United Kingdom, Scotland, Edinburgh. We were in Los Angeles. And again, if I drive my car, I don't know how much gas I have, I don't know how fast I'm going, my maps are wrong, and I'm not going to be able to drive effectively. And especially in any of these lead generation, I mean, this is true of the business, but let's zoom in on outbound prospecting. If you don't have your metrics down, it's very easy to solve the wrong problem in prospecting, right? I can't tell you how it's great. Okay, I'm glad you can write an email or LinkedIn message that gets higher response rates, but you get lower pipeline because you're getting a lot of the wrong responses. So this is a very general outbound funnel. Again, this funnel, different than the marketing funnel, different than the customer success funnel. The metrics are different. The steps are different. The deal sizes, the average deal size is different. The sales cycle length will be different. Again, seeds, nets, and spears, 3 types. For example, outbound, I have this conversation all the time. If you have outbound prospecting, and those opportunities will be different than inbound leads. So inbound deals might take, if your typical sales cycle is a month, with inbound leads, it might be 2 months with outbound. All right. Outbound might have double the sales cycle length or triple, depending on what you do. It will have a lower conversion rate. They're just different. So in this case, again, pretty classic. You're ideally measuring the number of activities people are doing, which could be anything, right? Social media, it could be knocking on doors. Are those leading to conversations? Are people responding in some way? Are you having phone calls? Because that's really what you're looking for, phone calls. If you're not getting phone calls, and then are the meetings leading to really the most important metric, qualified opportunities, and qualified opportunities that have been audited and checked by a manager. Because there's a lot of subjectivity, especially in outbound. It's in everywhere, but especially in outbound. And someone needs to check it. Because you're going to get a lot of inconsistencies in your pipeline if you don't have an audit process there. And lastly, win rates. We'd like to see typically in software or tech and product is like a 20% win rate. So of all the ones that you call qualified, we'd like to see 20% of that convert to be customers. So again, everyone's funnels are a bit different. Now I'll show you an example funnel. This is from Zora. Sorry, it's all in Portuguese. But with Zora, the top line is they had they're targeting larger companies. And so they have a goal of adding 10 account plans and a few hundred contacts per month to their account list, their database. And then every month they would make around 30 phone calls a day, right? And send 1,200 emails a month. And they also do social. And the goal is to get 16 "Are we a fit" calls. So first calls with senior people. And that would be qualified. There's a couple steps in here that aren't fully included just for space, but the 16 "Are we a fit" calls would then lead to 4 opportunities, 2 technical demos, and finally 1 customer. So this would be kind of 1 funnel for 1 prospector at Zora. The idea would be that they would get ultimately 1 customer a month. Again, their metrics can be different for everyone. It's about finding something that works for you and having some predictability with it. Now, from doing a lot of work over the years, there's a few things I've learned and just share them. If you have an outbound team, if you have SDRs, first you have to completely separate the people. As long as you have more than 1 person, if you have 1 person, they can't separate it in this SDR role. But inbound lead response should be completely separate from outbound prospecting, right? Outbound prospecting, if you're not doing it full time, it's really hard to do well. Okay, outbound prospectors, outbound SDRs, then should be matched to a specific number of salespeople, 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 4. 2 or 3 is pretty common, right? Because that relationship is really important for them to build. You want to don't pay on meetings, but pay on something that's higher quality, like sales accepted opportunities, the number per month. Ideally also paying something on revenue comes from that. And this is something really a lot of people miss, having a minimum, a deal minimum, which is the deals that come in have to be worth a certain minimum for the SDR to get credit. Because if they're able to get credit for meetings with small companies, they'll probably get a lot of meetings with small companies for small deals, and you're not going to make any money that way. All right. So that's pipeline generation. Lucy.
I think in terms of execution, during this part of this process of the pipeline, what are the common mistakes that you see, entrepreneurs and the startups committing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of them is just they want things to happen too quickly. Like they get maybe they're a bit desperate or they're impatient, and I want this up in 90 days. I want here's the joke. Can we see revenue in 6 months? Well, your sales cycle is 6 months. So no, like if you start, so that's one, it's just impatience. And so I think having realistic expectations on how long it takes to create a function, any of these functions, and see results. I think it's fair to say it's usually like 6 months to create and staff something like this and have it be working really well. But then you have to add at least a sales cycle length to see regular revenue. Right? It just takes longer than people want is one mistake. And then another mistake is hiring people who I'll call it dabbling. right? If you're, especially if you're a venture backed, if you're a company that really is aiming for growth and not just trying to avoid risk, if you really want to grow, you can't hire an intern or a couple people. Like these teams need more executive leadership or senior leadership to get them off the ground and make it work. And there's a lot of companies that, again, they want to hire someone who's cheap and young and have them figure it out. And a few months later, once in a while that works, but usually a few months later, they're like, it's not working the way I want. And they've kind of ignored it. So it's just more executive attention on the things you really want to work. So in other words, not enough executive attention in these functions when they're new.
Yeah, you were mentioning about, like how sometimes people get anxious and want like fast results, but I can imagine sometimes for like a startup, like that's the main goal and the main focus they have on their head. So how can startups thinking about the methodology of predictable revenue during the early stages, and how can they like develop this methodology in a suitable way to their business model?
Yeah, well, it's hard. Like, again, it's probably not as relevant until you have at least, okay, in dollars terms, because I know that it'll be different in Brazil and in Latin America. But generally, if you're going to do any kind of lead generation and you want to expect some predictable results, whether it's, again, marketing, prospecting, customer success, you probably need to have, again, at least 10 customers or 500,000 in revenue or $1 million in revenue. You need to have something there. So if you're really early and you don't have enough data or experience to know what's working, you can't expect any results yet. What you need to expect is learning, right? So the faster you learn, the faster you'll get to results. And so it's really more of a mindset change. It's really more of an expectations change at the really early stage companies, that if they're doing lead generation, they need to do that yes, you want results, but the results will come first from learning what works. So first you want the learning. And I can't tell you, a lot of times people, you're not getting results, they're impatient, they stop it, they fire it, and they just didn't. It's like, you can't, there's an old expression, you can't make a baby in 9 months with 9 women. I'm probably mangling this, but like, if you're going to make a baby, it takes 9 months. Or I say, like, if you're going to bake a cake, you mix it, you get the right ingredients, you put it in the oven, it's going to take half an hour or 6 months. If you turn up the heat, you're just going to wreck the cake. So it's a hard thing. And separately, I mentioned changes in the world, and one of the changes in the world is, and we've flipped, where there's a change, which is the past really was about hard work in terms of putting hours in, working hard, or money and hard work. That was the future of hard work is really emotional hard work. It's dealing with fear, uncertainty, doubt, loneliness, anxiety, right? And so the entrepreneur, working hard that's not the thing that will make you successful. It's not bad, it's not good. There's a lot of people who work hard who are not successful. But to be able to better dance with your emotional state of uncertainty and fear and doubt is much more important. Emotional smarts towards your success. And this is not just entrepreneurs, but for anybody now.
Yeah, one thing that I really like about, like some of the things that you have been saying is that about learnings, right? And learnings in a certain way is on the cern of everything. So one thing that I want to know from you is like about your first startup, for example, your first company that failed. What were the learnings that you had from it and that helped you, like after such situation to have, like such $1 million business?
Well, she's referring to is when I was, my late 20s, and it's around year 2000. We raised a few $1 million for a business, and it went out. After 2 years, it shut down, went bankrupt. That was really painful. That was, when a dream dies. And just like I wrote in one of the books, on Fridays, I'd go home and I would drink some, I don't know, alcohol, vodka or some alcohol while playing video games just to survive. But that one of the lessons from that was that I, as the CEO, because at the time I didn't know anything about sales. I had had some small businesses, as a kid and in college, but I didn't know anything about hiring professional salespeople and building a professional sales team. And I hired the wrong VP. So after that, that was one of the lessons, which is if I'm going to have a company again, I need to know how to build and manage a sales team, which led me to go to salesforce.com. And in fact, there's one important thing I tell people, which is when I went to Salesforce, before I'd been a CEO of a venture-backed company. Yeah, I went on a business. The only job they had at salesforce.com was really the most junior job of answering the 800 line, like answering the phone. That was the most junior job they had. But I didn't let my ego stop me. I was like, I need to learn sales. And to do that, I can't read books. I need to get a sales job. Salesforce.com looks great. I actually didn't know much about them. Get a job there. And because I wanted to get paid to learn. And so again, if there's something you need to learn, getting a job to do it is an amazing way to do it. Don't let your ego get in the way of doing what you need to do to be successful. Is another lesson. So the last one is that after now, fast forwarding, working through Salesforce and then consulting with lots of companies. And this next section on sales team design, it's probably the one that most of you, for those of you who are executives, this is the one that is the key to start with. And I'll go through the common, what do I say, not challenges. There's a lot of people who don't like this idea. And I am happy to explain to you why you still need to listen, why you still need to do it. All right, I call it sales team design. So now, if you were going to have a world championship team, you would have attackers. It doesn't matter the sport. Maybe there's a sport that doesn't have positions, but I don't know what it is. Attackers, defenders, goalie, midfield, whether that's basketball, football, rugby, any sport. You've got each person is in their specialist role and they're working with each other. All right. Now that is the model that you need to have in your sales team, whether you're one person, which we'll get to. I know I have a lot of you who are like, I'm only one person. We'll get to you, or more. Okay, this is the model that the fastest growing companies in the world use because it works. And there's a lot of people who complain about it, but they're wrong. So step one, now these are not, you wouldn't have these jobs exactly. If you are a software company or a B2B company, you'll have most of these, but everybody's a bit different. So I'll go through them, but the principle is focus. The principle is different jobs. There's more types of jobs, and there's people who could do those jobs. Each person does fewer things better. So focus is the principle. But in most B2B software companies, B2B product companies, you'll have, so lead response is there's someone whose job it is, as leads come in, they're the one who responds to them. Okay. A separate job is this prospecting or outbound, right? We're doing that outbound outreach, right? They're going after new customers. There's another job, right? Account executive, salesperson, signing new customers. And that's different than all the stuff after the sale. So customer success, but it also could include renewals, account management. There could be several things there. So these are all different jobs. Again, this can be done many ways, right? If you don't have leads, you're not going to have inbound lead response. If you have a partners team, you have a separate team for that. The principle is focus, having your team of people doing fewer things better. And it's actually more important now than ever because the complexity of the world, the nature of overwhelm and anxiety, when people have too many things on their plate and they're supposed to do they have too many types of tasks, it's overwhelming. So there's a reason this works. It makes it simple for people to know what to do and simpler for them to be successful. It creates new insights. So when you break sales apart into different pieces, it's easier to see which piece is working and which piece is not. It also makes it easier to grow, right? It's like a Lego blocks. If you're hiring salespeople, it makes it easier for them to to hire the right people, to train them and ramp them. Again, because they're not trying to do every job themselves. They have a fewer number of jobs and they can be better at them. And most importantly, for the long term, you're creating a talent garden, which is you have a way to bring in people and grow them through the ranks. And as they get to be more successful, then you can continue to promote them and promote them. Right. The bottom line is you will struggle without more specialization. And I've never seen a company that had too many types of jobs in sales. There's always a way to add more. And that is another way to add more variety, add more teamwork, add more specificity. And we do this with engineers, right? Front end, back end, this, that, the other, QA. We do this with marketing, but there's still too many companies that don't do this with sales. So here's a couple. I mentioned, okay, you're going to create a new role, the SDRs inbound or outbound or customer success. Okay. Yeah, you can, it's just not fast to get it up and running and working the way you want. Give it 6 months before you don't have to watch it every day. It's probably a fair estimate, right? Not just to design it and staff it and have it working and fix the basics and get it to the point where, okay, it's working pretty well. Also, when you do something new, try to start with 2 if you can, right? If you have 2 prospectors, it's better, or 2 customer success people, because then they can feed off each other. They can help each other, support each other, especially if you're all working remote, because that job can be lonely. And if you're the only person doing something, it helps speed things along, right? There's that, you can have like fun competition and again, better ideas. It really adds an extra energy to a new function. Now, a couple of ratios, again, nothing is a hard and fast rule here, because you might have 1 person dedicated to responding to inbound leads can handle about 400 leads a month that a human needs to look at. Now, you might have leads you can automatically route one or the other. Again, there's a lot of the variety of quality of leads varies a lot. If you have 100, it's all webinar leads, which are low quality, they could do a lot more. If it's all kind of demo requests, contact me, probably less. But, again, your business, you can kind of gauge how many people you need based on the number of leads. And then again, 1 prospector for every 1 to 4 salespeople is a good ratio. It's really important that the prospector and the salespeople have a good relationship. And if 1 prospector is helping too many salespeople, they're not going to be able to do that. They'll become defocused, right, and scattered. Now, I mentioned there's going to be some objections a lot of you have. Hey, we're too small. I'm just 1 person. Okay, right. You start by specializing your calendar. So whether you're a CEO who sells part-time or the first salesperson, you can block on your calendar. It might be blocks of time for prospecting. It might be blocks of time for customer success. Whatever it is you're not getting to that you need to, block it on your calendar. And even better is if you have like a buddy or a friend to kind of do that with you or just check on you, because it's easier to stick with habits when you've got someone else involved. Another common objection is, well, if I'm passing customers off between people, won't relationships and service suffer? I want especially my enterprise salespeople, I want them building the relationship from day 1, which I totally get that. But the reality is salespeople who do all of that, they're prospecting and responding to getting leads and closing and managing customers, they're not giving great service to most of their customers. They're just not. Right? So that's an illusion that they're always going to be building their relationship well from the beginning and maintaining it well. They're not. So it's better is when you have these different teams, you know that whatever stage the customer is at, they're going to get great service, whether they're a lead about to sign as a customer or they are a customer. And remember, again, there are times where you can have different models be in the same company, but have different kind of sales models. Your enterprise, like really big customers, their job and the way you specialize those teams might be different than the mid-market and the small business. So again, it's not about one, there's 4 roles that everyone does in the company. It's really, again, going back to knowing the types of customers you have, the jobs that need to be done, and kind of creating the right team design and the jobs so you can support your customers and support your sales efforts.
Yeah. Aaron, many companies, they expect their salespeople to do their own prospecting, right? Which can be like tough as doing like their own lead generation. And you are very, very clear that that's a wrong approach. So can you go deeper with us and tell us why?
So when you have, now, I'm not saying salespeople shouldn't prospect, because they should prospect. Some. They should prospect to make, usually it's like a handful of target accounts, like 5 or 10 or 20 or 30, like a small number of accounts that they can. It's just impossible for salespeople, for most salespeople, for the majority of salespeople to be able to close customers regularly and prospect consistently. You cannot build a team. Once in a while, you get someone who could do that, but you cannot build a team out of that. I've never seen that happen. You know, there's always exceptions to every rule, but like you will have a lot more success if you say, look, for those salespeople, they should prospect, but to a very specific type of customer. And for everything else, they should partner with someone who can assist them in many ways to be more successful. You know, unfortunately, years ago, decades ago, of course, I mean, salespeople had to prospect, they had to do all their own prospecting and closing. And so this culture grew up over time, which is, well, I did it all myself, so you should do it all yourself. That's only going to get in the way of you making more money. Again, fastest growing companies in the world follow that model of specialization because it works. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you one example of Zora is doing a bit different approach. So getting the idea of specialization, but kind of done in a mini business unit, because there's lots of ways you can do this. And the idea is, again, focus for people and customer segmentation to know the types of customers, and this idea of focus for people. Again, everyone is tired. I don't know about you, but talk to CEOs, everyone's tired. There's all this uncertainty and anxiety in the world with what's going on. No one really knows. And people's like emotional energy and energy is low. You just can't juggle everything. Or once in a while, someone can, but not the whole team. So again, this is just an interesting way that example of Zora, where they're kind of lining up a regional director with some salespeople and some prospectors and engineers and so on to have like a mini business unit that they can model a bit like a franchise. Lastly, you know, this section especially, because this is a very specific section. And if you don't do this, and I go back to like with the lead generation, if you don't have someone dedicated to prospecting, it's just not going to work very well. If you don't have someone dedicated to customer success, it's just not going to work very well. Don't have someone dedicated to marketing, it's just not going to work very well. And so this idea of specialization and who's on the sales team doing what is so fundamental to having a sales team that's successful, that it often is the first step. So like, what are you missing today? What do you need the team to look like soon? Does this change your hiring plans? Now, this last main section called nailing a niche. Now, I learned this section is relatively new. It was a section that was not in the predictable revenue book. It's the first part of the From Impossible book because it's so important. It really is the beginning. So what does this mean? Okay, you're investing in lead generation. You're specializing your salespeople, but you're still not getting the results you want. Why is that? Well, the usual reason, because we have a very busy world, right? It's an overwhelming world. It's only going to get more overwhelming, right? You haven't nailed now your market message fit for those types of lead generation. You might get word of mouth well, but whenever you're going outbound marketing, outbound prospecting, it's not working because you haven't figured out how to go from being dependent on word of mouth and brand to being able to generate leads in business by paying for it with marketing or sales. All right, so relationships and brand are great, love that, but a lot of companies hit a plateau where they have not been able to figure out how to generate sales without relationships and brand, and that's a problem. You know, like part of this is the confusion. All right, it's just the world's confusing, and a lot of companies, big or small, right? So Oracle, this is like a part of their product chart. if I'm a salesperson at Oracle, or if I'm a buyer, like, what do I buy? It's confusing. In a small company, it might look similar, which is, I've got a widget. Where do I sell? I can sell it anywhere. What do I do? And so you end up with all this. Here's all these things that I can do, or all these features. Or a smaller company might list all these features to the product, right? We do AI. We can do AI for this, that, the other. Look at all these things we can do AI for. But for people that don't know you, this is just confusing, right? And so your job is to take out all the distractions and the clutter from what you can do, to focus on what's the things that are most valuable to your customers, right? How can you make them money? And so I'm not sure, I don't remember how to spell it in Portuguese, but how can you make them money? Make it more clear and obvious as to what you can do for them. Because usually, again, your content is confusing your prospects. Companies put too much information about their product. They just make things too long. They're not easy to read. They're confusing. They're written, people like to write in a fancy language that's not easy to read. Okay. And it also confuses your people, your salespeople. What should I sell to who? So nailing a niche.
Is your customer, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm on the board of this company, Nuvini, right? And we've been buying SaaS companies in Brazil. Pierre Sherman, amazing guy from Boston, who started Bossa Nova, is the CEO. And I've talked to, I don't know, let's say 10 or 12 companies that we haven't bought all of them, but maybe bought like 7 of them. But a common theme for all these companies are they don't really know their customer segmentation. And I think that every single, maybe 1 out of 10, but let's say 9 out of 10, and these are more smaller, like under 20 million reais a year, I believe. Some might be bigger. I don't know, there's a bit, but maybe 9 out of 10 couldn't really specifically say, these are our customer segments. And if you don't know who your, big customer versus medium or small, if you don't know that, you're not really going to know, how do I generate leads for them? What kinds of salespeople should I have? What should my message be? So in this case, when you're nailing a niche, it's really about, niche doesn't mean small, it means focused, be specific. Because in a busy world, when you're focused and specific, it will cut through the noise. One of the things that will help. So when you've got this business, it's easier, say, to make the pond smaller than the fish bigger. You want to be a big fish in a small pond. You want to be, to be able to win deals. It's hard, though, to change the fish, right? Your product, it's easier to make the pond smaller, which means to be more specific in the kinds of customers that you can be successful with and the ones to target and what they want. So here's probably one takeaway idea. And this might be the main one for this section, is think about, okay, you have your customers. How would you describe the ones where you're a nice to have? How are they different from the ones where you're a need to have? Right? Because you don't want to go sell to both types. You want to target and message to the ones where you're in need to have. It's already hard enough to get customers. Focus on the ones, and focus learning on, like, when do people really need you? Right? So, and how are these two different? So for me, I went through this, I don't know, 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago. After I left Salesforce, and I spent some time at a venture capital firm, and I was like, what do I want to do? And I realized I didn't want to start another software company. I didn't want to be CEO. I didn't want to raise money. I was like, I'm not really sure, but I figured out, I knew I wanted to make as much money as I wanted doing what I loved. So I ended up creating this thing called Unique Genius, helping people make money through enjoyment. I created this is actually my first book, CEO Flow, turn your employees into mini CEOs. And I was still doing some sales consulting. But the thing is, I got married in 2011, and we had 2 kids right away from my wife's first marriage. She got pregnant very quickly on purpose. And there's a moment where I was like, oh shit, I need to make more money to support my family. I have a family for the first time. And kids, I started kind of late, 39. And so when I had to make more money to support a family, I went back to who needs me the most, the highest chance of winning a deal, of working with a customer, and who paid me the most, where I was creating the most value, right? This upper right quadrant. And that type of customer are the ones who wanted to hire me for sales help, right? And prospecting help and go-to-market help. And that led me to publishing the 2 books. Right? So those were my need to have. The unique genius and CEO flow, I still love those ideas. I'll come back to them, but they were nice to have at the time. Right, so there we go. There's the Portuguese. Oh, we've got the old Receita Previsivel cover in there, and there's a new edition. A failure here. It's all right. Same books, just different. These are the Portuguese versions. So it's like, what do your customers want? Like, we're so used to thinking about, oh, here's our product, here's our service. We're so great. We can do this. We can do that. We always, and no matter I have to remind myself too. It's just a human trait. I got to remind myself, okay, what do customers want? What do customers want? Right? Because they don't care what you do. They don't care what you do. They only care what you can do for them. They don't care that you're a sales consultant or a marketing consultant. They only care, how are you going to make me money? They probably don't care about, okay, you're an accountant. How are you going to keep me out of jail for tax fraud? So, this is my daughter, Aurora, who's older now, but she would, when she was young, say, hey, Dad, can you take me to donuts? I'd say, no. And at some point she changed. She tried something different. She's a smart kid. Hey, Dad, when we've gone for donuts, those have been some of my happiest memories. I'll treasure those for my whole life. Right? So speaking to the customer in a language, that's what I care about, making memories, good experiences, not that she gets donuts. And then, here we go, donuts. So here's an example. Story. In the United States, hospitals are very complicated. There's a company that was selling to hospitals, and they would ask, who's in charge of receivables, which is who's in charge at the hospital of collecting money. And the hospitals have to collect money from the government, from companies, and from people. It's a whole big money thing there. And they changed that. It was confusing. People didn't know, okay, who are you asking for? They changed that to who handles patient cash. And that language, doesn't really matter if you understand it or not, but that language is very specific to the right person. And that worked much better. Right? You're trying to say, who's our ideal customer who needs us? What do they care about? How can I speak in their language? And you have to remind yourself about this again and again and again. And all right, I want to leave you with this last problem, the new problem, the newest problem. There's always a new problem. This is what I see. This is what I've experienced. All right, and I've experienced this. I don't know how many executives and CEOs and so on talked to, seen it. This is like this exhaustion that people have been dealing with, especially the last 2 years. It really started with the pandemic, the lockdown, virtual work, stress, uncertainty, doubt, no one knows, can't see humans in person, locked in a room, right? But it's still continuing. And this lack of energy, right? This lack of, it's like now, it's not even the COVID pandemic it's a problem. We've got this energy pandemic, this emotional pandemic that leaders are, it's salespeople, it's executives, it's everybody. It's probably not even just in software. I'm doing much better. Like I mentioned, I went through a couple of years really hard, hated my work because I was trapped. Was able to exit my prior business. That co-founder's buying me out. Great, get to do something new, like things I really am interested in. So it could be work, it could be home. There's so many factors here, but it's a real thing. And what I believe is that the old precious resources, really more time and money, but the new one is executive energy. And I'm sure a lot of you have felt this, where think about a time when you were just like, ugh, and you just can't do much. Yeah. And so often we're just getting by, and we're just doing work. We're just working. We're not thinking of new ideas. We're not really building trust and having fun with our clients and teammates, building those relationships. And I'll say, like, today, before this, I work with a couple of big companies and with those people, and a lot of the times on calls we'll like joke and laugh, And, these are, again, like, there's some small companies I work with too, but like Google and Cisco, and we're making jokes, we're laughing, and there's no reason, and it's so much better that way than being tired and super serious. And that's, again, kind of this change I've been going through. And what I've started to do is I'm writing a new newsletter about kind of the way how I'm recreating myself and adapting to the new world on Fresh Air. And this was that first section. And when I got this title, when I wrote this, it came up with this title, it really resonated, which was I looked away and lost myself. And it was just this moment where I was like, where did my life go? Not wrong, but how did I get off track? Like, what am I doing? Like, who am I? Well, who do I want to be? And along with, like, how do I want to make money too? So, but I know if I'm feeling that, there's so many people who are feeling that too. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Like, one of the problems with, at least American work culture and British and probably a lot of others, is that everyone, especially like the more senior you go, the more you feel like you need to look and act a certain way. You can't show weakness. You have to be a leader. I know all the answers. And that's such bullshit. People like, then I can guarantee, like, everyone's got problems. That's no one's got it all figured out. And there's so many people, including, again, senior executives at big companies I've talked to, who will, again, be confident for the phone call, but then later they're just vague and uncertain, anxious, doubtful. That doesn't change as you get to be more successful. In fact, it can get harder because sometimes, more money, different problems, or more, sometimes more money, more problems, sometimes more money, different problems. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying, the more you can take care of yourself, whether that's at work, home, there's a lot of ways to do that. I know, again, what I'm doing is I've kind of changed who I'm working with. I'm changing what I'm doing, like working on stuff that's more interesting to myself. I get to create something new. Like, there's three things. I'm only going to work with people I like, doing interesting things, and making money together. Right. So that's one area. And I already have a great family life. I do need more physical energy. I don't get enough exercise. I was 10 kids. But I've felt so much better this year compared to the last couple of years. So, Lucy, what do you think? How you feel? What have you been going through the last year and a half? Are you feeling? We're all friends here.
I feel tired.
Yeah, see?
And that's a huge issue, because this lack of energy, like, reflects directly, like, for having fruitful sometimes relationship with, like, customers, and that's an issue that I see with a lot of people now, especially during pandemic, like this pandemic situation that we are living now. So how can you, like, put yourself in a good energy mode to keep doing your work and keep, like, building good relationship with customers?
Yeah, well, I think I can only speak for what I'm doing. And so part of that is really kind of listening to myself. Again, it sounds funny, but like listening to my intuition a lot around what feels important, not trying to, if it feels like, for example, the newsletter, the Fresh Air Substack, that feels really important. It's not completely related to my work right now. It will be at some point. It just feels important. It just feels important. And again, just working with people I like, which is different than before, like, makes a huge difference. Like, working with people I like, I get energy from that, and meeting new people, I get energy from that. So each person is different, but kind of thinking about one place you could start with is, can you make a list of things like, what do you get energy from? Some people might be meditation. Other people might be motorcycling. That'd be me. Archery. That'd be me. Meeting new people, like, that'd be me. Some people have cooking, like anything you can get energy from. Sometimes it might just be sleep. That could be a starting point. And again, this is an area I'm still developing that, and I would say that I am focused primarily right now on how to amplify executive energy and amplify executive impact, because my belief is, if I can help executives, and not really covering it in here, but if I can help executives, then if they feel better and see more results, they will help trickle that down to their people, like their salespeople or anyone else. But executives, in my belief, are the key, because if they're not bought in, or CEOs, to something like working fewer hours per week, they're not gonna, it's not gonna fly at the company.
That's true. And
Yeah.
at least for me, sometimes my lack of energy comes when, like I feel that I'm not having a goal, like, or if I feel that I reached my goal and I don't have, like much to work towards too. So in terms of like energy, what is your long-term goal with the predictable revenue? And yeah, like what do you want to achieve?
Well, so there's predictable revenue in Brazil, and I'd love to continue to see that be a leading brand in Brazil. But honestly, my idea for predictable revenue, I don't really have a goal for that. Like, I'm doing now something in my mind bigger and better. So what I'm doing and focusing on executives. So like for an example, Nuvini in Brazil starting, but it'll be other countries. Love that company. Like, it's a fun group. Pierre is awesome, doing something really interesting and acquiring SaaS companies and consolidating them right into. It's probably, I can't remember exactly if it's like around it's more than 100 million reais per year company now.
Wow.
And so really, I don't have a goal. The only goal I have right now is to work with people I like, doing interesting things, making money. And that's pretty much it, honestly. I don't really have a bigger goal than that, other than enjoy myself. That's my big goal.
That's an awesome goal.
I mean, it's kind of a big goal. It can be a big goal. It can be a bit of a challenging goal, honestly, because sometimes, like, I've been in this place where, like, what do I enjoy? I'm not really sure. I don't. It's a little more clear now, and it goes through waves. What do I enjoy at work? Do I have a hobby? Like, I picked up jigsaw puzzles again, like, because jigsaw puzzles, I'm like, wow, I just love them. It's like meditation for me when I get to do it. But yeah, it's interesting. You get to certain ages, and if, again, you're in your 30s or 40s and you feel like, wow, I'm not really sure what I want to do or what I like, or like, I don't really know where I get energy from. Like, that's very common. I get you. That's okay. Just keep checking in on it. And someday, like me, I was at a store and I saw jigsaw puzzle. Like, hey, I want to try that. I haven't done that since I was a kid. I took it home. Like, I was just engrossed. And I just learned how to do the Rubik's Cube. I don't have it here, but my oldest daughter learned how to do it, and she taught me, and that was awesome. And yeah, so, and it's even reminds me, she said this is, in the puzzle, it kind of reminds me of life, which is like, okay, it takes all these steps and takes time to solve it, and helps slow me down sometimes and be more present. And I just like it. So the puzzles, though, it's like, okay, each little thing is a puzzle piece, as it comes together slowly and slowly. At some point it's together, but each little step, each little day, it's like little steps at a time. So there is that to it, but I do them because I just like to. So.
And you were talking about Nuvini before, and I'm just curious about, like, why you decided to, like, face this new challenge, and what are your impressions of, like, the Brazilian like the Brazilian market?
Yeah. So, well, Pierre reached out. I just thought it looked like a really interesting opportunity. I really believe in what they're doing, in terms of, building a big company I just think that SaaS, like, call it SaaS consolidation, like buying SaaS companies and kind of like grouping them together. It's going to be a very big trend because there's too many companies. There's lots of great founders who build companies who do really well, but it's just really hard you can't do it all well. And you can't do fundraising and go to market and leadership and product. Like, some companies can. It's really hard to do all that. And there's a lot of great people who could use a lot of support. So you get to, 20, 40, 50, 70 million in reais per year, and you kind of plateau. So I think that, and I think that's going to be every country, like South America, it's already happening in the United States and has been for a while. Europe, I think, is huge. I just think that's a world trend. So it's just really interesting. And for me, this idea of building like a sales operating system across a portfolio of companies was just really interesting. And big family, I need to make money, right? I have a big family. I worked at Salesforce, but I I have a monster family, which means I have monster bills. And I have to be very careful about what I do in terms of how I make money and how my energy is and how much time. Because I spend a lot of time as a father. You know, I got a lot of kids. And again, I probably work 20 hours a week, maybe less, probably less. And so I have to be very thoughtful about the kind of who I work with and how it works. But yeah, I'm really excited about Nuvini and big believer. And again, it's for companies who, it's also different. You know, I've been doing outbound prospecting from a lot of years, and it just gets, tired of it. And I was kind of trapped in the way the business worked with like my partner. And there's like a United States company, different than the Brazil one, and the great people. I just need to do something different, bigger picture. So to join some boards, like I'm on the board of Nuvini, the board of a couple other companies. That's with the clients doing some new stuff. I'm like, oh, I got some new energy back. So again, everybody's different. This is what I'm doing. And again, I feel like I want to, starting to share what I'm going through and, okay, what works, what doesn't, and just being a bit more transparent and honest. Honest, not the right word, but if you go on LinkedIn, at least in the United States, it's just like, I don't find any value in all the stuff that people post. It's just a lot of like, I would say one-dimensional content. A lot of it's really good, just to me, boring. For me, it could be great for other people. And I would want something more real, like more human, which is, so I'm doing that myself, because I would like to inspire other people to be more human, or open. Like, yeah, it's okay to be tired. It's ridiculous to think that if you're an executive or anyone else, you're not gonna be tired sometimes, or you don't want to like take the call sometimes. Like, come on, let's like stop lying to ourselves and try to pretend to be something we're not. Let's have the courage to be a little more honest. So yeah, I'm starting.
Yeah, I know, like we are almost running out of time. So before we go, I wanted to ask from you, like, if I had like a struggling business, how would you advise me to switch from, like the old business strategy to the predictable revenue system? Yeah, like what would be the first step to go?
Yeah. Well, honestly, and this is in all seriousness, I would say read the Hypercristamento book, or read the From Impossible to Inevitable book. The same book, just different languages first. Like that has way better advice than anything I could tell you right now. The other thing is, find someone, ideally, find other people in your similar industry, or at least people who had similar jobs, and just reach out to them to ask them for advice. People like to give advice. Mm-hmm. That's a great place to start. And that might be getting a coach, but might just be meeting some people, hearing what they've been through. Maybe they went through something similar, maybe they didn't. Go talk to people. Honestly, that'd be the other start.
Yeah, that's a great hint. So yeah, unfortunately, our time is over. So Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. We had a great experience, and I'm pretty sure like the people who is going to watch this podcast, they're going to have like great learnings from it.
Yeah, I hope so. Luciana, hey, thank you very much. And thanks to the whole group here. I was happy to share things. And I don't know if you thought I should, I hope I left you thinking, wow, I'd like to hear more. Can you share more awkward moments? Those are the interesting ones. We got a bit more than we expected from Aaron. Okay, great. But wow, can we have some more? Sure.
Sure, I'm full of them.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and someone said a couple of weeks ago, we were on a phone call and like, well, like they were an executive at some company, and they said something like, well, once I've made it like you have, Aaron, I'm like, you never make it. Like, wherever you get to, there's always something else to do. And it's not like, yeah, like you said, you achieve a goal, or I achieve a goal, and I want someone to do something new. So how can I enjoy what I'm doing right now? I'm making it. But anyway, really a pleasure to get to chat today.
And like now, just out of curiosity, now with your relationship with Nuvini, did you have any like interesting insights and learnings specific for, like the Brazilian market that you would like to share with us?
I don't know how much of it's for the Brazilian market. I do think that Brazil has an amazing opportunity, right? In the ecosystem and the entrepreneurs, there's so much interest and excitement to kind of create companies and build companies and grow companies. There's just, it needs more experience, There's such a difference when you've got people who've been doing this for years. It's so much easier. So it's still early for Brazil. And I'm really excited for Brazil. Like, it's such an awesome country and environment, and it's a great place to be. I know there's a lot of problems in the world, and Brazil has them. Brazil doesn't have the only problems. So I know, like, people in America love to complain of America's problems, and but Brazil's awesome. And I just think there's so much opportunity. So
yeah,
I just love people's enthusiasm. I would say that same thing is, I guess, too, like, if you had a business for like 10 years or 20 years, I'm just saying, you probably need to be more diligent in getting some outside help, because you're probably stuck in your ways and your views and your habits. And for a lot of people, it's really hard to change. So if you can see that and you're not getting the results you want, be aware, like, maybe you need to find a way to change the executive team, or the way that you contribute to your job, or bring in a coach, or some way to shake things up at the executive level, because that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Lucy, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet you, and it was great to hear, from you. And I'm sorry, I'm just another, question out of curiosity. Because you mentioned a lot about like learnings, right? And sometimes, especially for like entrepreneurs, it's hard to kind of look inside, and see their own mistakes and try to learn from them, and to avoid that they happen again in the future. So yeah, like, what is the importance of this kind of learning process in your life, and what are the advices that you give for people to identify this kind of pitfall and thrive?
So I think it helps to have an outside person. We had a business coach for a couple of years to help me navigate how to exit from my prior company. That was really helpful. And what I've been practicing is, it's first of all hard, because also, like, I feel like I know myself or something, and then things change, and there's always like, but lately I've really been working, how can I kind of sit with myself, and, it's not always meditation, which is part of it, which is like, listen to myself, and just be more observant of myself and others. It's so easy to go through a day and just blindly go through and do the same day and think the same thoughts and go on autopilot. So how can I slow down and kind of just be more present in, do I like this? Or again, at the store, hey, jigsaw puzzle. So it would have been so easy just to kind of ignore that and move on. Like, all right, well, actually, maybe I will get that. Just listen to those whispers. Everyone's got these, I don't know, I've got these whispers, which are things like, oh, maybe I should, I'll make these up. I should go travel, or I should write a book, or I should do a jigsaw puzzle. And it's really easy to just ignore them as I go about my day. I'll quote, there's actually a song it's Frozen 2, Into the Unknown. I remember, but she literally says, there's 1,000 whispers as I go about my day that it's easy to ignore. Like that's true. So I'm like, maybe I'm not the only one. Just practicing listening to those better.
Great. And Danielle, please interrupt me anytime. If people don't stop me, I just keep talking. As you guys notice, I like talking, so please just let me know.